Hello. Today we're gonna work some practice problems. So we're asked to create a class company. Let's go and do that. New Java class company, and it has fields like static string company name, employee ID, static string company name. Static string company name. Then final integer employee ID. Final int employee ID. And employee name. Okay. Now we should implement the constructor to be able to initialize employee ID and employee name fields. Let's go and do that. So public name of the constructor matches with the name of the class company. Then in parentheses we pass parameters. So employee ID and employee name. So int employee ID and string employee name. This is the body of the constructor within the curly braces. So let's set the employee ID to employee ID that we accepted from is a new value, and this employee name is equal to employee name. Now let's give our company name. So let's call our company some company name. Okay, let's say I don't know, Apple. Now let's create a static method print company name that prints the company name. So the return type will be void static. Oh, it should be first static then void static. Void, the order matters here. Static void print company name. No parameters. The method does not accept any values. It will just return, it will print out the name of the company. So company name. Okay. Now we will implement getters. Now I will implement getters and setters for employee name. Okay, so we remember that getters are the methods that are used to obtain the values of the fields. So they return some value. In this case, it will return the name of the employee, so the return type will be string employee name, get employee name, since it's a getter. In parentheses we don't write any values, since the method does not accept any values. So return employee name. Now setter for employee name. So our setter will not return any value, so it will be void set employee name. In parentheses I will write a parameter that helps us to pass the new value to the method. So it's string employee name, and within the body of the method we will assign the new value employee name to the field that we have. So we can use this employee name to differentiate between the field and the parameter. Employee name. Okay. Now we will create a main method. And let's create some objects using class company. Let's say employee1 is equal to new company. We call the constructor here. The keyword new here used to it means that we're calling the constructor, and we pass arguments like employee ID and employee name in parentheses of the constructor. So let's say 1 for ID, and for the name let's call Rachel. Okay. Now let's print the company name. Let's call the method print company name here. So print company name. And then create another object. Company employee2 new company second. And let's say Peter. And again print company name. Let's go and run this. We can see that the name of our company is printed here. So let me explain how this program works. So first we created fields. First field is a company name with the keyword static. It means that the keyword, I mean the field is created once in the memory, and then it is shared. It is shared with all the objects of the class, and this field company name, it does not depend on a specific object. It is not associated with a specific object and can be called using static methods. Here you can see the keyword final. Final means that the field once initialized then cannot be changed, so it becomes immutable. and we can check it here. Let me comment this, and let's leave employee 1. Let's say I want to change the employee ID of the object employee 1. So employee.1 employee ID, let's set it to 3. So we can see here that something is wrong, but we can try and run this. Java says that it cannot assign a value to a final variable. So like I said, final variables are immutable, and once we declare them and initialize them, then their values cannot be changed. We cannot assign a new value to the variable set with the keyword final. Okay. So we saw that errors occur when we try to change final variables, final fields. Now let's go and create a new class math constants. Oops. Now let's go and create a new class. New class math constants. And this class has 2 fields, 2 final fields, 2 constants, so pi and Euler number. Let's go and implement this. So final double pi 3.14 final 2.71828. Okay. Now we're asked to implement static methods for calculations. Area of a circle and circumference. Area of a circle. So area of a circle will return us a double value, and it's also a static method. So static double, let's say area, or calculate area. Now let's add here in parameters the radius. So double radius and return the formula for area is pi r squared. So we can use here pi times radius and radius. can see the mistake here. To refer to the field, we should use obviously the name of the class. So math constants dot pi, and now we can access. Sure, we cannot access, as you can see, we cannot access non-static fields from a static method. So, alright, so we cannot access a field, a non-static field from a static method. In order to do that, we will use final static fields here. Static, final, static. Now let's write a static method for circumference. So the return type will be double, static double calc circumference. Yes, and again it accepts as a parameter radius. And the formula for circumference is 2 times pi r. Return 2 times pi times radius. And in the main method, let's try and test what we got here. So since our methods are static, we do not have to create an instance of the class math constants, and instead what we will try to is we will try to run, I will try to call the static methods directly through the name of the class. So let's create a variable integer result and assign to the variable is the result of the calculation. Let's call static method, so math, remember name of the class dot name of the method, so calculate area, and let's pass the radius here, say 5. We can see the mistake here because the return type of our variable is int. Since Java is a strongly typed static type, Java supports static typing and is a strongly typed language. This implicit casting is not allowed here, and we should specify the return type of the data type of the result variable double. Okay, now let's see what we got here. Let's print out the result. We can see the program works fine. And now let's try to print out the circumference. So let's say circumference circle is equal to, and let's call method calculate circumference using the name of the class math constants dot and the name of the method that we're trying to call. So calculate circumference, and pass the radius, let's say again 5. Let's go and run this. We can see the circumference, so everything works fine. Now let me go back and explain it again. So we created two fields here. If we hadn't assigned the static keyword to these variables, then we would not be able to refer to them from the static method that we defined here. So static methods can only access static fields, and from static methods we can call only static methods. So we cannot call a non-static method. If these methods would be non-static, then we would have a mistake. Then we would have an warning message here from compiler. We can go and try to run this. We can see that a non-static method cannot be referenced from a static context. So like I said, to do this, now we need to create an instance of the class math constants, and then only then we can call the method calculate area. So instead we put a static keyword and make the method static, so it helps us to associate the method with the class directly and not specifically with the object. And the same principle here with the calculate circumference, we can see. So that is basically the logic of this program. Now the next task is we're asked to create a class library. Let's go and create the class library. So Java class library, and class has some fields here. So you can see private book title, private string book title, book title, and we have protected string author. So protected string author. So these keywords, they mean that it means the author field can only be accessed within this package and in subclasses of the it can only be accessed within this package and in subclasses. The private keyword means that the book title field can only be accessed within the class library. And in order to access it from the main method, we will have to implement a getter. And if we want to change the value, we should implement setter for this field. Now we have a default field, means there's no access modifier, it's just integer year. So integer year, and we have public string category. If there's no string category category. So if there is no keyword before the data type, it means that it's a default access modifier, and the field year can only be accessed within the package. On the other hand, public means that the field category could be accessed from anywhere of the program, from any package. Now let's implement getters and setters for each field. So let's start from the book title. Getters are the methods that are used to obtain that returns the value of the field. For example, in this case, with the field private book title, getters can come in handy because we cannot directly access the field book title from another method, like main method. We need getter. So let's go and create it. So getter should have a return type. So in this case it will be string get camel case book title, and no parameters, return book title. Now let's do the same. Let's apply the same principle to the rest of the fields. So again, here string get author, return author, then for year is integer, return type get year, return year. That's on the spelling. And for category, so the return type is string get category and return category. Now we're asked to implement setters for each field. So setters are methods that are used that allow us to modify the values of the fields through calling them. So usually setters, they do not have a return type, and we can write void. Void, then comes the name of the method, so set, and camel case for the rest. So set book title, and in parentheses we write parameters that this method can accept. So it should accept a new value. Let's write string, let's say new book title. And now we can assign to the existing field value book title the new value that we obtained from the method. So new book title. Now let's go and do the same for the rest of the fields. So void set author returns, it accepts as parameter string new author, and then curly braces. Let's assign our new value to the field. So new author and semicolon. And for the year, void set year, in parameters int new year. So year is equal to new year. And the last one, category. So void set category is a string, so string new category. And category is equal to new category. Okay, now in another class, let's create a library object in another class and check access to the fields. Okay, let's say we have another class. Let's use our company class. Let me get rid of this. So let's try to access. Let's first create an object of the class library. So library, we can see that the IDE suggests us the name of the class. Since we can see that the access modifier for the library is public, and which means that it is accessible from any class, from any part, from anywhere in the program. So we can create an instance of the class library here. Let's say book 1, new book, and call constructor. And in constructor we did not specify the constructor, so it will be the Java will call a default constructor. Says we have a problem. So we know that the name of the class should match with the name of the constructor, and vice versa. So you can see here it should be library, and now we have created an object, book 1. Let's try to access the book title. So book 1 book title. We can see that it is impossible. And let's print out this. Let's try to print this out. Now let's say we have Okay, so let me correct this. Let's create an object within the main method. So library book, new library. The default constructor, Java creates a default constructor if we don't specify one. So as we know, the default values will be assigned to the fields of the class automatically when we call the constructor. So for book title and author and category, we know these are the string data types, and the null will be assigned to those and 0 to the year. Let me quickly write a constructor here. So we use public because we want to access it from a different class. Public, the name of the constructor, same as the name of the class. Let's say first book title. Then I will explain later, we have a problem there. Author, integer year, and string category. As you can see here, now we have a specified constructor. So let me finish this. So this dot category is equal to category. This author equal to author. This year is equal to and this book title is equal to book title. Now let's pass the arguments to the constructor. So first comes the book title. Let's say atomic habits. Then comes the name of the author, James Clear. Then the year, I guess, doesn't show us. Yes, the year, I don't remember, it's 2010, 2015. And category, as long as I remember, this book is a self-development. Now let's try to access the fields of this fields of this object that we just created here, using the print function. So to access the getters and setters of this object, we can use the name of this object. Then we can use we could use getters here. Let's try to use it. Get book title. Yes, so we can see here we can get the title of the book. We know that the book title is private and in order to access book title we need to use getter. Now let's try to access the author, and we know that author is protected. You can see the author. No. So we can see that any field could be accessed by using the getter, but let's try to directly access let's say category. So category is has a public access modifier, so there should be no problem with accessing the category. So self-development, yes, it's correct. Now let's try to access the year. Now we can see we can also access the year. Let's try to access the book title. Here we're gonna get the error message. Book title. Book title, yes. So the IDE is already mentioning that something is wrong here, and we can see that the book title has private access, so we cannot access that field from a different class directly. We should use getter here. We are in the same package here, so that's why we could access the year. But what if let me take this field. But what if we create an object in a different package? So let's say package with the name practice 1. So before it was in practice 3, so our main class in practice 3, and now we're in a different package. Let me paste the object that we just created, and let's try to access now the year of the book. So the year, you can see that year cannot be accessed from a different package because it has a default access modifier here, and it means that it cannot be accessed from a different package. So let's see. As we can see, year field is not public, so it cannot be accessed outside of the package. Now let's try to access the author. The same here. We cannot do that because author has a protected access modifier, and so we're gonna have problems here. So we can see protected access, but we can access the category of the book since it is public. So you can see everything works fine, and of course the private fields cannot be accessed because it's private. but we can call the getter here. We could call it, if we specify it here, public. We could call it, so let's say get author. Now we can call it, because it's public. But if I remove the public here, we can see the message here, error. So it cannot be accessed because it has a package, because it has a default access modifier and cannot be accessed outside the package. Okay. Now let's create a university class. Let's create a new class in the package practice 3 Java class university. So the fields are static string university name. So static fields, university name, and let's assign the name of the university. Let's say Harvard. Final field here, student ID. So final and student ID and name of the student, string student name. Now let's implement the constructor to initialize student ID and name. Name of the constructor matches with the name of the class, university. So string student name and integer student ID. Within the body of the constructor, let's use this to differentiate between parameters and fields. So this student ID equals to student ID, and this student name is equal to student name. Next, let's create a static method, change university name, to change the name of the university. And of course it's gonna be static. So static, let's say void, and change university. We remember the camel case here. Change university name, string, and it has parameters. A parameter, to be more precise, string new name. Here we will take the university name and change it to new name. So this is basically a static setter. And let's implement a getter for student name. getters, they should return some values. So in this case it will be string student name, get student name, no arguments, no parameters here, because it will just return student name. And now let's implement a print method that prints the student info. So it will be a void, it will not return any value. Print info. Oops. Print info, no parameters. Information that prints about information about the student and universities. So university, here we call the university name, the name of the student. Say student. Student name. And let's print out the ID as well. Student ID. Good. Now we will create a main method here. Create 3 student objects. Let's go and do this. Main method. So the name of the class, university dot name of the object, let's say obj, or let's say student 1, new university. Let's say John, and ID 1. Let's copy this. Let's say student 2, student 3. Let's say Alice, ID 2, ID 3, and the name of this student will be Eric. Now let's change the name of the university, but before that let's print out, let's call the method print for the student 1, student 1 dot print. Now we're asked to change the name of the university. To do that, we can call the static method. So name of the class, university dot, and change university name. Let's say now it's Oxford, and display the information about each student. So student 1 again, print, student 2, print, and student 3, print. Let's go and run this. We should fix this. Give me a minute. Let's run again. Now we can see, so in the beginning John at the University Harvard, and we can see the information about the student. Then we changed the name of the university using the static method, and now we can see that university changed for all the objects. It became Oxford. So how does this work? Static fields, they are created once and shared by all the objects of the class. So the static fields, they do not depend on specific objects, but rather they belong to the class. So we can see here also static method that allows us to change the value of the field, of the static field. So we can change the value of the static field through the static method. If this method would not be static, then we would have error here, since we cannot refer to the static field through non-static method. It causes an error. So let's go and run this. The compilation error will occur. So we can see non-static method cannot be referenced from a static context. So that is it. Now let's create class game settings. Game settings, new class. The class has fields: max players, static int max players, final string game name, and integer with a default access modifier, current players. Okay, so now let's implement the constructor to initialize the game name and initial number of players. So the constructor matches with the name of the class. So we are asked to initialize the game name and initial number of players. So string game name and maximum initial number of players. So integer current players. I'm using the keyword this here to specify that I am referring directly to the field. So field current players, to field of this class, and not to the parameter. Now let's give let's make a static method set max players. So this is a setter, has no return type. In parameters we pass integer new max players. And we say max players equals to new max players. Now let's implement another method. Let's specify max players. Let's say 3. Now let's create a method to add player, and we want to add condition here. We want to check if max players is greater than current players. Only then we will increment the current players. Okay. Then we'll implement print game status, which is also void. Print game status. It prints the game name, the current number of players, and the maximum number. So system out game name, prints the game name, current number of players, and the maximum number. maximum number of players. Okay. Now let's go to main method and create two games. So the name of the object, the name of the class, sorry, game settings. Syntax for creating an object. So let's say game1. Keyword new to call the constructor. Constructor name matches with the name of the class. And in as arguments we could pass the name of the game. So let's say chess. Current players, let's say 1. And the next game. Let's create a second object. So game settings, game 2, new game settings. And this game, let's call this game, what game will it be? Say cards. And the maximum player for this game will be 6. Now let's change the maximum number of players. So game.1, game1 dot, the name of the method. So first of all, let me change the cards to checkers. Checkers. Check. Checkers. So 0. Now let's change the maximum players. So to call the maximum players field is a static field. So to call this field, to change the field, we can use another static method here, set max players. So to do that, we should first refer to the name of the class, which is game settings. Game settings dot set max players. Now let's change it to 2. So max players is 2. And print out the information. Print before and after. So game.1, game1 dot, print game status. Let's do the same for second game. And after we change the maximum players, let's add players to each game. So let's add players to game 1 and game 2. Let's add one more to game 2 and print out the status. Copy paste this. Now let's go and run. So in the beginning we can see that when I just created the instances of the class, game settings, game 1 and game 2, so the game name is somehow not displayed here because we have a mistake. And game name. Now let's go and run this again. Now we can see game name chess, number of players 1, current number of players 1, maximum number of players 3. So this was before we changed the max players. So okay, let's get rid of this and run this again. Now the objects were created, then the maximum number of players were changed to 2, and you can see it here, and then we used the method to add player to game 1. So the current number of players 2 here, previously it was 1, now it's 2, so correct. And then twice we added players to game 2, so that you can see here current number of players in the game 2, which is checkers, is 2. So everything works correctly here, and then we printed out the information about the game status. Okay, now let's go to the next task. Let's create a class person. So the class has 3 private fields: first name, last name, and social security number. Let me quickly create that. Private access modifier. So string first name, private string last name, and this is final, by the way. Private final integer, right? Yeah, string SSN. Now we're asked to implement the constructor. So name of the constructor, then parameters, first name, then last name, and last but not least, social security number. Again, we use keyword this here to differentiate between the parameters and fields. So this, the name of the field. So first name is equal to the value that we obtained from the constructor. and again this last name. We use constructors here so that whenever we create an object, we could immediately initialize the fields and assign the values to them, to the fields. Assign them appropriate values. Now let's create getters for all the fields. So getters are the methods that return the information about the object. So we can get the values of the fields and print them out and return them to the calling code. So the return type string here, get first name, camel case, empty parameters, return first name. String again, get last name, return last name. Again string s, get ssn. Now let's implement setters for first name and last name. So void, because it does not return any value, so set camel case first name. It will accept the new value here, so we write parameter string first name, so again keyword this to differentiate. Now let's write setter for last name, set last name string last name, and this keyword this last name is equal to last name. Good. We didn't create a setter for SSN because SSN has a keyword final, which means it is immutable. So once we create this value, once we initialize the value, initialize the field SSN, after that it cannot be changed because it's immutable. It has a final keyword here. Okay. Now let's implement the print person info method, which will output the information about the object. So again, void, it does not return any value. Print person info, no parameters, curly braces, they mark the scope of the method. And here we print out the information, so starting from the name, first name, let's use several system print line functions here. So last name, and SSN. We cannot access SSN directly, so we will use okay. Now in the main method, let's create several objects and change the first and last name and display the information. So main object class person, name of the object, let's say obj1, new, again constructor, and then arguments, first name. So let's say James, last name Smith, and SSN will be 1, 2, 3, 4. Another person, obj2, the name of the person, then the keyword new to call the constructor, name of the constructor, and arguments. So let's say Dan. Let it be a week. And the SSN 1, 2, 3, 3. And the last one, the keyword new, person, constructor, and the arguments. Let me John, Jones, one. Okay. Now here, to change the first and last name, we have to use setters, because the access modifier is private and we cannot directly change. We cannot directly access. So let's try to access the first name. So obj.1 dot first name. You can see here let's try to print out. Yes, we can access it because it is the same class. But if we were to access it from the different class, then we would have to use setters. We would have to use getters. But let's try to change the first and last name of the object1. So let's say object1 dot set first name, and here in the parentheses we can pass the new value for the first name of the object1. Let's say George. Now let's change the last name of the object2. So set last name. And then be Benavides. let's try to display information about each object. So to do that, we'll use the name of the object. So object1 dot print person info, then object2 dot print person info, and object3 dot print. Let's go and run. So the first person, George, we changed the name of the first person. Before it was James, now it's George. And then we changed the last name of the second object. So it's now Dan Benavides. It was week. And the last one, you can see everything correct here. Everything works. So that was the last task. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.